Welcome to Buckets, your daily NBA betting podcast presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. I'm Brandon Kravitz, joined by the market maestro, Michael Fiddle. Bryan Fonseca with us tonight as well from the New York Post. Two dynamite pros with me to break down the solo game in the NBA on a Tuesday night. But it's not just any game. It is the Emirates NBA Cup final between the Spurs and the Knicks. A reminder, sign up for Action Pro at actionnetwork.com/pro, promo code POD20 for $20 off your annual subscription. Spurs, Knicks in Vegas. Both teams come into this game on a mini winning streak, which I guess you kind of have to be on one of those. It's like the NCAA tournament. You have to be on a winning streak to get to the final. Spurs have won 3 in a row now. They just beat the Oklahoma City Thunder. The Knicks have won 5 straight after beating the Magic in the semifinals. We'll get to the betting side of things as we do. And I thought we were going to come into this and have to kind of like put our heads together to come up with 3 plays for tonight. But no, we have one game. We have nearly 9 plays. There's a little bit of consensus on the board here. But Bryan, if you look at these two teams, or when you look at these two teams, who comes into tonight's game in better form, the Knicks or the Spurs?
I think some people would want to say the Spurs because they beat OKC, but it's the Knicks in totality. Their resume over the last couple of weeks now has been good. They're mostly healthy. Deuce McBride and Landry Shamet notwithstanding, which hurts their shooting a little bit, but they still have their core guys. They still have their main guys. Listen, they had to beat Orlando, and as you know, Orlando has been playing really well as of late. Now, Paolo's there, not Franz. That's another discussion for another pod, and we probably will have it at some point. But
I think you and I have already had it actually.
Yeah,
check that out
as it
develops on your platforms.
As it develops, we'll keep having it. But I mean, with the Knicks right now, I would say they're in better form. Although I expected a little bit more of a market overreaction to the Spurs beating OKC, and I don't feel like we got that. I feel like we're right where we probably should be as far as the game. Like it's the line's been settled at 2.5 for the Knicks. So we didn't get the Spurs overreaction. But I do think one still could come if Wemby does have a minutes increase, and maybe that's the other piece of this.
It doesn't feel like that's something that we're going to learn beyond we've already had the media availabilities with quotes from Mitch Johnson, the head coach of the Spurs, where he said, we are not at the stage where we will be unintentional with his minutes, speaking about Victor Wembanyama, whether that's volume over time or just long stints. It's a lot of vague stuff coming from both Victor Wembanyama and the Spurs staff. Fiddle, the way that I look at this in terms of the market read, Fonseca's right. Dead set. This number has parked at 2.5. It opened at 2.5. It's sitting at 2.5 right now in favor of the New York Knicks. The way that I read this, Wemby is worth 5 points to the spread. I have the Knicks as 4.5 point favorites without any Victor Wembanyama involved on a neutral court. The Spurs I have as about a 0.5 point favorite with a full Victor Wembanyama. So if we're going to cut Wemby in half here, that means it's not as gruesome as it sounds.
He'd still be 7 foot. He'd still be 7 feet.
I was about to say, and if we cut him in half, he's still 5'3".
That's would Victor Wembanyama still be an all-star if you cut him in half? Different discussion for a different day. But if you do that, that's Knicks -2 with half a Wemby. And that's pretty much where we sit. Does that sound right to you? And your thoughts on the lack of movement in the market?
Not totally, because I actually think we're pricing Wemby closer to 75-80% of him, because he is going to play 24-25 minutes in this game from what is normal, what slightly above 30 normally is. So I think we're pricing Wemby 80% plus of his value. And so I do agree with you. He's worth 5 points against the spread. I just have different numbers for Knicks or Spurs on neutral. I have Knicks slightly better than that. And so that's the only place I would disagree. But I would also say you're right in noticing there's been zero market movement. Bryan said there's not been a Spurs overreaction. I still think this means there's a vastly big Spurs overreaction happening. And so we'll get to that when we get to that. But I think that is the 2.5 to me is a Spurs overreaction.
I thought that after they beat OKC, I was like, are the Spurs going to be favored? Like I guess that's why we're talking about degrees. I thought there'd be more of an overreaction than this, but you're heavy on the Knicks, which I'm interested in because as someone who watches that team a lot, they do worry me a little bit. That's what I would say.
Do you think that pricing a 75% Wemby is the proper way to do it though? We did get 21 minutes out of him.
Yeah, and I think it's fair to assume that he's going to increase his minutes a little bit here. I would say probably 4 minutes, and we'll talk about where that might come throughout the game. But so I think you're going to put him at 25-ish, 26 minutes for this game. That's what we've normally seen with other players returning from calf injuries specifically. Is like I think even I think when Paolo came back, he was 20 minutes his first night, 24 his second night. I know there was one superstar who had that exact intonation in an increase in minutes game over game. So I think it's fair to price him, 4 minutes more and closer to 25, 26. And so, yeah, I would say pricing him 80% of his value is probably spot on. I just am a little bit confused why that price has come in there, why there hasn't been market movement. And to me, it could only happen in one direction from here.
I think this is what we are going to see throughout Victor Wembanyama's career. And we've already seen it to some degree, is that when this guy is out there, people just want to bet the shit out of him. And what he did to OKC, the fact that we found an OKC antidote in Victor Wembanyama is enough to make bettors in a standalone island game say, give me all of that. He played 21 minutes. He was a plus 21 when he was out on the floor against the Thunder. That's ridiculous.
In a 1-possession game.
Yeah. And I think it's important to give you the distribution, as this does lean heavy into one of the caps. So I'm just going to say this and then we can move on. And this will be part of our breakdown when we talk about what we're actually betting on the night. Victor Wembanyama scored 15 of his 22 points in the fourth quarter. The minute breakdown per quarter for Wemby was first quarter, he played 0 minutes against OKC. Second quarter, he played 7:19. Third quarter, he played almost 5 minutes. And then the fourth quarter was his heaviest workload. He played 8 minutes and 32 seconds. So just keep that in mind with Wemby. Now, in terms of, we're talking about market sentiment and the public love for Victor Wembanyama. Bryan, would it surprise you at all to learn that on the Action Network app, bets are being tracked 69% on the San Antonio Spurs, 74% of the money. So that perhaps is the reaction that you're talking about, is that the Spurs are getting love in both tickets and dollars.
Given the minutes distribution, I do wonder, okay, so if we're projecting another 4 minutes, let's call it 25, we go from 21 to 25. I do wonder where that comes from. Like, do they actually just try to keep him away in the first quarter again? They were losing 31-20, by the way, at the end of that first quarter. And he came in and the game changed a little bit, obviously. And then we really saw it in the second half. And he's going to do that. And it's also a pretty advantageous spot considering, again, the Knicks are like their depth. They're kind of just searching. Like Mike Brown has tried a few different things. And, Ariel Hukporti hasn't gotten the minutes that I probably thought he could have so far this year. Gershon Yabusele hasn't really been good. Jordan Clarkson's been inconsistent. Tyler Kolek, who just had one of his best games, but admittedly the bar for him is not very high and he's not like amazing. They're starting their best guys. And Mitchell Robinson is coming off the bench now after they started the season playing a double big lineup. Mitchell Robinson coming off the bench means Victor Wembanyama will see Mitchell Robinson. And how's that going to factor in to this matchup? So I do wonder if, and we got a comment here from G Montoya, I do wonder if he'll see a couple of first quarter minutes this time. Do some of the minutes that we think will get added on come in the first quarter? I think primarily they'll try to save him for the second half. And, obviously the fourth quarter mainly, like you want to get him a run for those last few minutes. It was 4+ minutes in the in the third quarter. You want to see him do that again because you want those last 7-8 minutes of the fourth quarter in particular, especially against the Knicks team, who, while they've been better lately, but their fourth quarters have been weaker than their other quarters for the large part of the season.
Fiddle, before we get to our plays on the night, because this is gonna, so much of our conversation is built around how we're betting into this game. Is there any theme that you were able to draw from the two games that we saw in Las Vegas, or even if you wanted to pull from what we saw in previous Las Vegas games, the neutral site aspect, does it change the way that offenses played, defenses played? At times it felt a little bubble-ish to me, where these guys just really wanted to get up and down and scoot and put on a show. Not quite all-star levels, but to me, it kind of felt a little bit like the bubble, where the guys are more locked in on every single possession.
Yeah, that's actually a great way to look at it. I didn't even think of bubble stuff. I heard what seemed like on the broadcast a resounding Spurs sentiment in the OKC versus Spurs game. It felt like anytime Vassell hit one of the threes, they'd pan to the crowd and you'd see it lighting up there in a loud roar. So it felt like there was some Spurs backing in the crowd there. Now, I talked to somebody who says I was actually at the game and that wasn't too true. So maybe it just came through in the broadcast a little differently than what it actually was being there. The pace was definitely something to note. Like, they played fast in a bunch of the games. Like, the Knicks Magic game was way faster than I expected. So I would say that is probably the biggest takeaway, was the speed and the pace up and down the court. I was looking at the game like, is this court like a little bit smaller? Like, how are these teams moving? So it almost felt like the geometry was different. Now, I know it's not, and I wasn't a real serious thought, but I was like, they are just flying up and down this court. It almost feels like they're playing on a 3/4 court. So I would say the pace might be a little bit faster than you would expect, but then other people are saying, well, this could mimic a NBA playoff situation where like each possession matters more. So teams slow it down a little bit more in the half court, or slower to get into their thing because they don't want to waste possession. So that could be like an under movement, but the pace so far has said over movement. So a little bit of uncertainty with that one. I think uncertainty creates advantages to bet into if you can figure them out. But the last thing I would say is what I've noticed probably the most is that all of the players and all of the teams really, really care. So I think that holds true for all of the cup situations, even the group stage game, but like no more of this really lazy, this team's going to care more as part of a cap. Like, that stuff has to be done with this now. This team, these guys are paid more. So let's go Spurs because they're all on rookie contracts and they want the money more. Like, that is just not fucking true. We had Wemby, excuse my French, pun intended. We had Wemby say he doesn't care about stacking dollars. And on the flip side of that, we have Josh Hart, who's definitely made way more money than Wemby in his NBA career, say like, I really want the money, right? And like he really is going for the money. So he's like, I want it for myself, not for the younger guys on the team. I want it for myself. So
he also got robbed. That's why he got robbed before this. A bunch of watches got stolen from his hotel.
Yeah, why was Josh Hart in a hotel room on a random September night in New York City? Okay, anyways, Bryan catches on to my drift. So yeah, I would just say like people putting their own motivation angles onto this is clearly awry. Like, we have been shown that these situations are ones that players really care about. It's spotlight. It's the only game on. It's neutral court. The court's different. It's big prize money. Like, there's so many reasons, but you can't say the Spurs care more. You can't say the Knicks care more. They both give a lot of shit.
I completely agree with that. I think the more bettable angle in terms of projecting motivation would be in the total, because of the way that the guys care, but it's not like they care like it's a playoff game. But in a playoff game, it is just everything you do, every move you make is to win the game. There is a little bit of showman going on, especially at the beginning of these games in Las Vegas. It's kind of like these guys, it's like they care, but they want to show off a little bit. And when NBA players decide they want to show off, I think that's where we get that feeling of a shrunken court, because everybody's trying to get their shit in. Bryan, do you see any of that as far as with the totals? I mean, I know we had one over, one under, so it's not like it's not like there's a trend forming here. This is just more of what an eye test is telling me in watching these teams and the way that they operate.
Yeah, like my lifelong watching basketball brain generally tells me playoff games, lower scoring. But in this NBA, it's not always the case. Although
Right.
it wouldn't stun me tomorrow, but we'll see. I don't have a play on the total for what it's worth. I don't play a ton of totals, but there's a world where this could be a slugfest because one of the things that I talked about. So we did a watch along over at the Post for the last game, the semifinal game with the Knicks and the Magic, and with the possibility of the Knicks playing the Spurs, I talked specifically about their activity, and I do wonder how that factors into the total here because you do have different defensive looks and combinations and blitzes that you can throw at guys like Jalen Brunson, that you could throw at even guys like OG Anunoby if you want to force the ball in his hands and have him create a little more than a Jalen Brunson. Wemby obviously being a cheat code means he can play safety, middle linebacker, center, like he could do whatever he wants at different times. And then like just with the general activity, athleticism that the Spurs have and how bothersome it could be for a Knicks team that's not super athletic, but plays also really, really hard, especially on the offensive end. And this year they've been better at finishing in transition. Mikal Bridges, especially, where last year he was fading away all the time. So I do wonder what happens. I think the finals, if I recall, went under last year, and that was because Oklahoma City just missed a shit ton of threes, which we then overanalyzed and we're like, "Yo, this happened against the Mavs, then this happened against the Bucks. What's going to happen in the playoffs?" And they ended up winning the title. So I do wonder what the reaction is going to be to this. As far as the total go, like I wouldn't be stunned either way. If it's an under, it'll be like an intensity thing, an activity thing, and guys are just uneasy, turning the ball over, trying to do too much, as you said, perhaps. And then if it's an over, it's like this is modern NBA basketball. Guys get up and down, probably too fast, and like this just is what it is.
By the way, the total has gone over in 6 of the last 8 Spurs games. The total has gone under in 7 of the last 10 Knicks games. So keep that in mind before betting any.
And Brandon, the total
totals.
similar to the spread is right at the open price. Like we're at 230.5 across the market.
Mm-hmm.
So there has been some under movement, but then it got bounced back up and it's right back where it opened now. So it's also like we can't say there's a clear market angle to the total either.
Is there a market angle to either of the two more popular bets that one can make? You know, in terms of the side of the total, it just seems like it's hard to read. And I've had this issue since these guys all got to Vegas because I've had this issue all week. You and I talked about this, Fiddle, the last time we did a pod together. With no rest advantage, everybody's got 4 days off in between games. It's just, we're not seeing as much movement with these lines. It's hard to get ahead of things. When things don't move, you can't get ahead of anything because nothing changes. So
yeah, I think we're definitely going to see movement tomorrow. Like on game day, when limits increase, when a lot of people's bankrolls are not tied up into NFL bets. So it's like football slates are over because these games have been priced in Saturday. So a lot of bankroll gets tied up and churned out into NFL stuff. And then you get to game day and there is still going to be a limits increase that comes. So I think some of the biggest bettors are going to come in day of. And I think we have seen that in at least in the games thus far in Vegas. Like New York versus Orlando was very one directional towards the Knicks until game day. There was a hit back towards Orlando. Like when these games are priced 3 days out, which is like a rare thing for NBA situations to get prices so far in advance. But like I think the Knicks and Toronto and the Heat Raptors game was on Tuesday. And so those prices came out Tuesday night for a Saturday game. So we had Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday to get to the game tipping off. So that's like one of the biggest stretches you'll ever have in an NBA situation where it's already priced. So when you see that, you start seeing one directional movement. Like it was only money coming in on the Knicks on Wednesday, on Thursday, on Friday. Like there are Orlando backers waiting, and like they're like, okay, why do I need to go now? I'm just going to keep waiting. And so the same thing happened with OKC and San Antonio. It was OKC, Wemby in, price change, OKC, more money, and then day of there was Orlando money and San Antonio money. So there has been like moments of game day action. There has been steam and then resistance points. It's often gone back to where it's like was priced the whole time, which is something to say, but I do think we will definitely see some sort of sharp action come in tomorrow.
Yeah, you're talking to somebody that lost on the Magic Knicks game because of the market movement. I wasn't even going to bet the game because I didn't really like the line. I thought it was more of a Knicks spot and a Knicks line, and then it got up to 5.5, and I felt like that was just an overcorrection, and I bet the Magic. And
yeah, well, you had a great ticket at close. I think it closed back at 3.5.
Yeah, I don't regret the timing of it. I think was smart and sensible, but sometimes, and this is why, if you have all this time, it's the same issue I run into in betting the NFL. You have all this time and lead up, and if you sit and wait and you watch these lines, and then it shifts in a direction where you feel like you're getting value at the close, but you didn't even really like the game that much in the first place. Sometimes you trick yourself into a loss.
To be fair,
yeah, go ahead.
Jalen Suggs doesn't hurt his hip. You probably cover the way he was playing in that first half. That's also part of it too.
He's a baller.
Yeah.
I don't care what longitude or latitude his headband is at for the game. Dude is
or around his neck for that matter.
He should wear it around a different part of his body in every game.
By the way, last year's NBA Cup final was 97-81.
Oh my.
Milwaukee won. OKC didn't have Chet, and they shot 5 of 32 from 3. I remember this because they were just bricking everything from 3-point range in that game. They shot 34% from the field too, by the way.
Noted. So my eye test is heavily baked in recency bias, and we'll mark that for future podcasts. We'll hop into our best bets in just a moment, but first, an important message from our very own Matt Moore.
The Buckets Podcast is teamed up with DraftKings Sportsbook, where new customers can bet $5 and get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. Love the thrill of live betting? DraftKings has you covered. Bet live on star player props and in-progress games right as they happen. To get started, use promo code BucketsNBA when signing up with DraftKings. Again, use code BucketsNBA when signing up and bet $5 to get $200 back in bonus bets if your bet wins. The crown is yours.
Time waits for no man. We all have 3-star, 2-star, 1-star plays, even though we only have one game. We're so fired up for this one. There are bettable angles galore. So we're going to go individual by individual here. And we'll start with Michael Fiddle. 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 stars. You've been waiting all night to deliver this to us. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I actually think I have 3 stars, 3 stars, and 3 stars. Like for me, this is a 9-star type of game, not only because of the spot of the NBA Cup Finals. Personally, I don't care too much if there's an edge. It's more about the edge and exploiting it. But I think this is an amazing spot to bet into. So I would say the first play and the one that I like the most is Knicks first quarter money line. Now, we know Wemby played 0 minutes in the game against OKC in the first quarter. And yes, I do think Wembanyama might start for this game, and he might end up playing probably 4 or 5 minutes, but he normally plays 7 or 8 minutes in the first quarter, and he is just not going to do that. There is no way that his minutes distribution is what it normally is in like the middle of February game where he's fully healthy and he plays 7.5, 8 minutes in the first quarter. That's not going to happen. It's going to be between 4 and 5, and it depends on where that comes in. If it's Cornette that starts or if it's Wemby that starts, we'll see. He started the second quarter and then took a break and then came in the last 3 minutes of it as well. So it's like, how do they want to get him between warm-ups through a little first quarter minutes? I do expect him to play about 4, maybe 5 first quarter minutes. That if we look at the prices for this game, and this honestly, guys, one of the biggest edges I think I've run into this NBA season. And so if we look at the prices for this game in the first quarter, and we go to the spread, it's half a point. Like, how are we at the point where the game's 2.5 and the Knicks are a half-point favorite in the first quarter? Given the additional Wembanyama factor, this should be Knicks -1, Knicks -1.5. So then I started exploring, okay, how do I price first quarter money lines? What's the value of the tie versus playing the -0.5? Because obviously you can tie in a first quarter and people aren't going to foul towards the end in those situations. So I said, okay, how do I start to price this a little bit? And I generally know the prices of everything I'm betting into and what the distribution and if the price is worth half a point, what the change is worth. I rarely bet into these kind of niche derivative first quarter markets. So what I did was I started comparing it to tonight. And I said, okay, well, the Miami Heat are -1 at some sports books, -1.5 at other sports books on the first quarter. At our beloved DraftKings, they're -1.5, -105. So that felt like a really fair comparison angle to where I thought the Knicks price should be. And so that money line for the first quarter was -142. So that's about where I think this money line on the first quarter should be, because it should definitely be a Knicks first quarter spot, given that Wemby's not going to play his normal rotation, and we're pricing this spread in the first quarter equivalent to what the full game value like would predict, right? So I just in no way, shape, or form can I get to Knicks -0.5, -113, or Knicks money line in the first quarter -125, or prices that are out there. To me, those are phenomenal, like absolutely amazing. The kind of a rare, I'm going to push my chips in on this moment because I think that's a clear and obvious edge. I don't think it's going to last for many games. I think Wemby, when he comes out of the break and they go against the Wizards, he's probably going to be back to a pretty normal rotation and he'll be starting and it'll be dried up. But right now, I'm like, this has to be an edge. So number one play for me is Knicks first quarter money line, 3 stars, probably double it, 5 or 6 stars for me. Do you want me to just keep going, or do you want time to respond?
I just wanted to throw out there that the DraftKings also has first point scorer. If you just can't wait more than 3 seconds to see if your bet hits, and Victor Wembanyama has the shortest odds among any player in the game at +398. And he is being priced as if he's just going from the start, from the jump. And I think that is where some of this value lies, because it's not likely that he starts this game.
Yeah, I could pull some like upcoming data for this game. Well, when you guys are talking, I can go through that market a little bit, because I would imagine like Josh Hart's definitely going to start on the Knicks side. So I would imagine it's Towns taking the tip against maybe Wemby or Cornette, which still feels like it's going Spurs direction in that. Maybe I'm wrong. I'll have to look at like, NBA first basket data out there and then who takes the most shots. But that does, again, Brandon, I would agree. That seems like it's a potential mispriced market.
Bryan,
if Wemby does start Fiddle, what do you do? I guess would be my question. Like if he starts, and I assume if he starts, it'll probably be just a 5 or 6 minute stint. But we don't know the starting lineup yet. I know we're expecting him to come off the bench, but we don't know that yet.
Yeah, so I mean, if he starts, then this is the right price for if he's for me, this price is if he's playing a normal rotation in the first quarter. We just know he's not, right? Like I think we're all in agreement. He's not playing 7 or 8 minutes in the first quarter. He's playing maximum 6, right? So you're still getting an edge. That's why I like the most is the Knicks first quarter angle from a first basket. I mean, you'd just be betting into flat odds, right? So then you might not have a huge edge. You might just have a flat bet. It might be slightly minus EV if there's no movement. But I just think that's why I love most is Knicks first quarter. But I would also say like these are your rare opportunities. That's why we say when there's uncertainties in the market, it creates some advantages, because like this is like what you have to capitalize on if it is mispriced, and it's worth taking those shots when you have these kind of chances.
My only concern is just if he starts, because even if he plays just 6 minutes, 6 Wemby minutes could be 8, 6, and 2. Like, and it could just.
But him starting is not going to make the Knicks not a slight favorite in the game and the first quarter, right? Like they're going to be a slight favorite in the game, no matter what. Even if we get Wembanyama playing full minutes, they'll still be a slight favorite.
I'm talking more specifically about the first
-0.5 in the first quarter. At worst, you're going to get a few worse cents on the bet.
Yeah, I'm just talking more so specifically about the first quarter, because if Wemby does start, I do think the Spurs have the better bench. Like they just do. Mitchell Robinson, last game notwithstanding, and a couple other performances notwithstanding, has not been consistent, has not been that good over the last couple weeks. He's had a couple monster rebounding games, but he doesn't have the same juice as he did early on. He actually made a free throw last game. He is now up to, I think, 6 of 27 for the year on free throws, 22%. But he wouldn't come in for much of he would come in the first quarter, but not for like the first half of it because he's be coming off the bench. But otherwise, if this becomes the Spurs bench, against the Knicks bench for like those last 2 minutes, that's where I would be worried, just because I think the Spurs bench is better and they'll be active.
So I wanted to throw that back at you because you'll see a couple of guys on the Knicks check out, but isn't it an advantage that you still have Brunson out there? So he played all 12 minutes against the Magic in the semifinal. I imagine that's
he normally does. That's
the regular occurrence for him. So the fact that you still have the best player on the floor for the Knicks out there for the entirety of the first quarter, that has to be part of the evaluation here. It is for me.
Who is also a target on defense.
True.
And who I think is going to, this is not going to be an easy matchup. It's a matchup where, sure, he can get 38 points, 7 assists, what have you. Like, Jalen Brunson's awesome. But I also don't think just because he's out there, it doesn't mean it's like the Spurs are good. It doesn't mean you're just going to win the minutes when he's out there all the time, All
right, Fiddle, 2-1 or 3-3. Another 3, another 3.
Which is also a 3 in my opinion, is Knicks full game -2.5. And just so that we're clear, a 2.5 on a spread -110 should be equivalent to a -142 in a money line. So if you can find better, because there are plenty of places where it's better on the money line, I believe DraftKings last time I checked was -135. I personally would rather play just the -135. It's 7 cents better on value than playing the 2.5 -110. So, but either or, I'm totally fine with. Market ratings have these teams 5.1 points different. Okay, and so I get if we want to say neutral, like that's on neutral court. I get if we want to say the neutral court is more a Spurs environment, that's fine with me. I also agree that if Wembanyama plays a little bit more, that should be factored in as well. I still don't think that's going to cut the spread in half like we cut Wemby in half earlier in the show. So I just don't know how we're getting to 2.5. And so that's really just something that I keep seeing. I think if there is going to be game day steam, it is going to be one direction. It is going to be Knicks taking action. So I love the Knicks in this spot. It would be another sizable bet for me on the money line or ATS. If you have a Spurs future, like I know Jim and Joe and Matt grabbed like a 250-1. I mean, fucking hat tip to those guys preseason. Plenty of people have reached out to me saying, I have a Spurs NBA Cup ticket. What would you do? The answer to that is, we have Michael Moreau in the comments. I have a Spurs future to win the cup. How would you suggest betting the game? How exactly you go about hedging that is up to you, whether you just split it 50-50 on your winnings and just completely neutrally arbitrage it. It's okay if you just do your original exposure bet back on the Knicks. It's cool if you bet 75% of your winnings on the Knicks so that you're more exposed to the Knicks in this spot. Like, it doesn't really matter within that, but I'm normally not a hedger. This is one where I would definitely hedge, and I would definitely do it pregame, and I would do it with the good money lines that are available. I wouldn't mess around and do a 2.5, because then you're opening up a Polish middle where if Knicks win by 1, you're toast, right? I wouldn't wait for a live situation because we think Wemby might not start. We think the Knicks might get off to a good start. So that those numbers might just get worse. So I would do it pregame with the fair and slightly better than -2.5 money lines that are available. That will likely gain CLV in my opinion. And then you'll end up with an amazing position having Spurs futures and Knicks in game with CLV. Like, that is a dream situation where you just kick your feet up and watch it. But individually, even regardless of having a Spurs future, which I don't, but this is a Knicks full game for me as well.
The whole hedge conversation is one of the most popular questions that we get as betting analysts, and Fiddle's right. It is such a personal decision about risk management for you. What are you trying to pocket, and how long was the ticket? I have a Spurs future as well for this tournament. It's not 250-1. I think I got it before Wemby was hurt. So it was 60 to 1. It's nice. It is a nice ticket. But it's not 250 to 1.
Brandon,
So
we talked about gambling books last time we did the show. There's a book by Dan Abrams called But How Much Did You Really Lose? And it's about hedging and proper ways to hedge. And it's not all about maximizing EV. Sometimes the question you need to ask yourself is, how will this change the future of my betting and my bankroll? And like, if winning half of that future on a 60 to 1 allows you to scale really fast, then maybe you should arbitrage it and just go 50-50. If it doesn't make that big of a difference to you either way in your portfolio, maybe you do want to just ride it out, because the biggest EV you can do is probably not hedge anything. Hedging's for gardeners. If you know, like, if you want to just find the middle ground, maybe you do something else. But like, if people are interested, obviously you're not going to have time to read the full book before the game tips off.
I did catch that one audio book. Phenomenal listen. Catch it on audio.
Awesome.
Yeah, that way you can read while you ride around. That's the real trick to all of this. All right, last one. Final 3-star.
It is going to be Knicks first half. I mean, same cap. The price is worse. But I do think, like, if this is the edge, then you should exploit it in any way possible. That's kind of the basis of it. Don't need to go too deep into it. But it like, Wemby clearly played more second half minutes than his first half minutes. He's clearly going to do something similar in this game. Like, Mitch Johnson had the quote of like, he wants to start. He wants to be out there. He definitely wants to end the game. We're going to have to talk about it. It's a hard decision, but we'll see. And so, like, it's just a no-brainer. Like, it's a lot of teams are doing this. The 76ers are doing the opposite with Embiid, where they just play him normal rotation from the start, right? So you just have to recognize some team tendencies. The Spurs are not going to just throw Victor out there for 32 minutes tomorrow. It's just not going to happen. So they are going to backload his minutes. And so for that reason, you could get Knicks money line in the first half -150, -142, which is, I think, what the full game should be anyways. So it's the worst price amongst the three of them. You can get first quarter like -125. You can get full game -135. You can get first half -142. So I'm like, that's kind of how I'm arranging them, is by prices. But it does feel like if you do like Knicks first quarter, first half, and are going around Wemby's rotation, then at fair price, that should definitely be a play as well.
And I want to remind people again, the comments from the Spurs head coach. We are not at a stage where we will be unintentional with his minutes. I've never heard a coach in the NBA say that and then play a guy 40 minutes. I don't think it's happened. It's definitely not happened in the last 5 years. It may not have happened in the history of basketball. Bryan.
Knicks also, by the way, second best first half team in the NBA this season in terms of scoring margin, behind only the Oklahoma City Thunder.
Now, San Antonio, I was looking at those numbers too. San Antonio has been pretty good in the first quarter and the first half as well.
First quarter, they're both up there, but that's with Wemby. Yeah,
Wemby. Yeah,
they're like 2 and 3 or something like that.
It's all a Wemby cap. All right, Bryan, what about you? Give me your 3, whatever star rotation we're working with you. 3-2-1, 3-3-3, 2-2-2.
I would give out a 6-star play as a nod to GTA, but they're taking forever to drop the next fucking game. 3-star play, OG Anunoby over 1.5 steals to get 2 or more steals, as a matter of fact. So whichever has more value in your book of choice. This does feel like a OG passing lanes game. Victor Wembanyama, by the way, if he does spend a decent amount of time on the court, OG should be there, because that's the guy, or one of the guys, who will be entrusted to guard him, because he can guard up, whereas Mikal Bridges, you want him to guard down and play safety a little bit more. OG Anunoby, you could have him play safety, or you could have him on the ball a little bit more. This is not specific to Wemby, but it's one of these things where, look, Wemby does turn the ball over a lot, because he tries to do a lot with the ball, obviously. And he's capable of doing a lot, but he also turns the ball over, I think, 5 times per 100 possessions this season. And it's closer to 5 times per 36 minutes over the last bunch of games after the first 4 or 5 games of the year, where his turnovers weren't that bad. As a matter of fact, he didn't have a turnover the first 2 games of the season. But Wemby, that's one of the areas of his game that maybe he'll clean up at some point, but the Knicks can take advantage of that. But otherwise, OG Anunoby is going to have these opportunities. And in terms of steals, he's gotten 2 or more in 3 straight. In playoff games, if you want to judge this as a playoff game, he had 2 or more in 12 of the 18 playoff games that the Knicks played last year. And in these playoff environments, OG is often going to be the guy who plays a ton of minutes along with Mikal Bridges. Like, these guys are not going to come off the floor for very long. As a matter of fact, OG would have played even more minutes than he did last game, which ended at 40. But he came out because he had a brief little injury scare for the first or for the middle 3 minutes of the first quarter, in which Gershon Yabusele played the only minutes that we saw him play in that game. So OG is going to play a lot, and that's another part of this. He played 40 minutes last game, and he tends to play a lot in these type of games. 2-star, Stephon Castle, over 21.5 points plus assists. Now, there tends to be a guard who can get theirs against this team. Jalen Brunson and Tyler Kolek as point guards, for example. Not the guys who are going to be amazing defensively. Neither is Jordan Clarkson coming off the bench. And again, Mikal Bridges he's more effective off ball than on ball. So I'll be curious to see how they try to attack Stephon Castle in this one. But Castle has gone over since coming back from injury all 3 times, and he's gotten over this on points alone with 30 against the Lakers and 22 against OKC. He's another guy whose minutes have been ramping up, 23, 26.5, and now 34 in this last game. So we're expecting a healthy amount of Stephon Castle in this game. So I still feel like this is in buy low territory for him. If you want the points alone, you can get that, an even lower number. Perhaps somebody, we'll talk about that a little bit later. But this is a good spot for him. And generally, guards who can create and who can particularly knock down shots, as you saw Jalen Suggs do in the game against the Knicks, like, you can get yours against this team. Not that the defense is bad, but on the perimeter, that's where you can hurt them, especially if you're able to get into space against Jalen Brunson and Karl Anthony Towns if it's a 2-man game. 1-star, speaking of Jalen Brunson, I'm going to be on his assists, over 6.5 assists. So he's gone over this in 4 of 7, excuse me. That includes an 11 assist game against the Boston Celtics. He had 8 last game. He only had 2 in the first half. And then in the third and fourth quarter, you saw him really setting the table after going off offensively very early, where him and Jalen Suggs went just 1 for 1, shot for shot, it felt like. And some of this was actually going on in the Raptors game as well with Brandon Ingram. So I think this is a game where the Spurs can attack Jalen Brunson potentially offensively in different ways, try to get the ball out of his hands. Stephon Castle could do some of that, obviously. I think there could be some blitzing, and I think there will be opportunities for Jalen Brunson to get his assists. So this does feel like a game where he can score a ton, potentially, if he's just in rhythm, getting to his shots, particularly in the mid-range again, as he was doing last time, taking advantage of matchups and isolation situations against guys like Tristan Da Silva and Wendell Carter Jr. in the Orlando Magic game. But this also does feel like a spot where back cuts are going to be very important, especially Victor Wembanyama is going to be a little bit away from the basket at times. If you can lure him away with Karl Anthony Towns shooting the basketball, and maybe Jalen Brunson can find guys, because Mikal Bridges has been doing a very good job moving without the ball, as has others like Josh Hart, for example, who's always really good at that. So I think there will be opportunities. So that's sort of the trend here for all my plays. I'm looking at opportunities, I'm looking at minutes, and I'm looking at potentially, schematically how things can shape up.
I do like the idea of targeting these guys like Jalen Brunson, whether it's in the points department, assists department, these guys that are likely to win Cup MVP if their team wins. Those are the guys that are likely to have these sort of breakout performances, or the breakout's probably not the right word for it, but a star-like performance. That's why I'm after Stephon Castle, because if the Spurs are able to put it all together, I think Steph Castle is the guy that wins Cup MVP. It's going to go to the winner of the Cup, and it's not going to be Wemby because he barely played in. I mean, who knows? The NBA.
No, it might be Wemby still.
Steph Castle, last 2 games in the Cup, 30 and 22 points in the NBA quarterfinals and semis, respectively. And that number, the points total, 16.5 for a guy that's handling the scoring load, averaging 18 on the season. I'm kind of jumping ahead here, but I'm just going to go ahead and rattle off mine while we're at it. We'll get you on out of here. My 3-star play is the Knicks first quarter for all of the reasons that Michael Fiddle already laid out. So I'm completely with him on that. I love playing first quarters in the NBA. This is such a delightful opportunity. If Victor Wembanyama doesn't start it's going to feel like, now you got to watch it play out, but it's going to feel like you can cash your ticket immediately. And then even if he does, he's not going to play his full allotment within that first quarter. But again, if you want to hear more of that, just hit rewind. 2-star play is Steph Castle. As good as the Knicks defense has been, they've been one of the best defenses in the NBA, especially lately. That backcourt defense just isn't there. And you mentioned Bryan picking on Jalen Brunson. Well, who's the guy that's going to be doing that? It's primarily going to be Steph Castle. If you think it's not, go ahead and play De'Aaron Fox. One of those guys is going off, but I'll look the way of Steph Castle because he's been the better of the two. And then my 1-star play, we're going to go back to picking on Victor Wembanyama. Maybe we don't cut him in half. Well, we can cut him into thirds. Wembanyama, under 10.5 rebounds. He was sitting at 11.5 is where his prop typically was before he missed time. Now he's playing limited minutes and going up against two of the best rebounding bigs in the NBA and Karl Anthony Towns and Mitchell Robinson. So this number, it just feels like the books are giving you from the first point scored in the game where he has the shortest odds, even though we're not even sure he's starting in the game. The first quarter spread, the full game spread, his rebounding numbers, like you're getting all the sports books are just, they love the idea of people checking in on this casuals event, betting Victor Wembanyama because he's such a phenomenon, and then taking all of your money. So I don't think betting Wemby overs is a smart endeavor. I'm going to attack the under at 10.5 rebounds. And one more shout out to Matt Moore, Joe Delera, and Jim Turvey, who placed the 250-1 ticket on the Spurs to win the cup back in November. Phenomenal stuff, gentlemen, and phenomenal stuff by both of you. Before we get out of here, it is time for our Tuesday NBA parlay presented by DraftKings. We're going to slam our picks together. We're going to go Knicks -2.5, OG Anunoby 2+ steals, Victor Wembanyama under 10.5 rebounds, Steph Castle over 21.5 points and assists, Jalen Brunson over 6.5 assists. Our Emirates NBA Cup final DK parlay 15-1. And that is your Tuesday NBA parlay presented by DraftKings. The crown is yours. That's going to do it for us here on Buckets. We're done slicing Victor Wembanyama into fractions. This episode, of course, presented by DraftKings. Shout out to Bryan Fonseca, Michael Fiddle. Best of luck to both of you and to all of you with all of your bets as we wrap up another fun year of the NBA Cup. If you want to tail any of these, look for the quick slip link in the podcast and video description, or you can go to actionnetwork.com/bet now. Shout out to DraftKings, and until next time, let's get buckets.